times change, right? So you gotta like, are you gonna like just like not go as hard because you know it's got a little rough?
Yeah.
You know, are you gonna stick it out? Or are you gonna still do it and go just as hard as you were going when you were making X amount of money, but now you're making a little bit less? Like, you know, and I think.
Guys, super excited for today. It's one of those episodes where I know the guy, but I don't really know the guy. Lord Wave, aka Cena, co-founder of Pink Dolphin. And I think the first thing to start is he started Pink Dolphin 12 fucking years ago. This is the poster child for patience, grind, long-term hustle. Nothing happens overnight. So I just wanted to start with that because that blew my fucking mind that it's been that long. I mean, how old are you?
I'm 28. About to turn 29 in a month.
So you started this when you were what?
17.
17.
Crazy.
So for all the younger entrepreneurs out here that are looking for the quick strike, great things take time. He is a living example of that. Welcome to the show, my man.
My guy.
Excited.
Welcome.
And we have a lot of interesting backstories on how they intertwine, so I'm super excited for this.
Yeah. I mean, should we start with it right now?
Let's start with your background.
Yeah,
because
let's start with you, and then we'll go into...
To set context, Cena, among other things, is the co-founder of Pink Dolphin, and it's got very heavy roots tied to the Bay. So let's just start with your backdrop, just how you grew up, your family, your life. Like, who were you growing up?
Right. So I grew up in like, you know, I would say like middle class family in the Bay Area, Fremont, California to be exact.
Nice.
I don't know if you know where that's at, but it's known for Tesla now. You know, the Tesla factories there. They build all the Teslas there. Grew up, my mom, my dad, my younger brother, and, you know, I was always like, I would say when I was younger, I was kind of like a bad kid when I was in school, you know, like I matured quickly, you know, I was in trouble a lot in school. I got expelled from the 5th grade.
What'd you do to get expelled in the 5th grade?
It was just like, it was some dumb shit, man. Like me and like a bunch of my homies, like we were just wilding out. Like we were just like kind of like terrorizing our elementary school. They tried to, it started in the 4th grade. They tried to separate us all in the 5th grade and put us all in different classes. So we were like away from each other, but we were still just fucking shit up. So then they just like expelled us from the school district for a year.
I never terrorized other kids. I terrorized the teachers. Is that what you're doing?
I mean, it was a little bit of both. I mean, we weren't bullies. Like I wouldn't say we were bullies. It was more like funny shit, you know. But like
pranks.
But they didn't like that. Like, you know what I mean? So like it just like went a little too far. And then I ended up going to I had to go to a Christian school for the 6th grade. Then I came back 7th grade back to public school. So that was actually like it was actually like a cool experience looking back on it, like going to a private school for a year, which is not because my parents wanted me to, but like they're fucking pissed because they had to spend hella money on that. But
yeah.
But it was just like, it was like a cool experience looking back on it, just being in that environment versus like being in the public school environment. And I think that had a lot to like do with me growing up too, you know. Then I came back into public school. I was, you know, I wouldn't say I was always like, I wasn't like ever really into sports, you know what I mean? I was more like computer nerd, you know? So
I would have sworn you were a huge basketball guy given like the whole Warrior situation and
I mean,
culture guy.
I didn't even really get into sports until I moved to LA, like I would say about 8 years ago.
Interesting.
Yeah, I would like go to basketball games here and there and stuff like that, but I wasn't like I never really watched TV like that growing up, you know? I was more like on the computer. I was just like a nerd, so I was like
computer nerd who terrorized the school.
But like you wouldn't
heard
know
of
I
that
was a
one.
computer nerd, like being in school, you know what I mean? But I was like in like the 8th grade, I was photoshopping kids' report cards for $10 and just like I've always been hustling, you know what I mean? Like trying to.
I used to do that in college too. I used to do the parking, to get like all the crazy good parking, so you wouldn't have to.
The parking passes and stuff like that. That cost hella bread. Yeah.
So with Pink Dolphin, I always kind of get confused because I feel like you guys are kind of both hybrids.
Mm-hmm.
You do the creative, or are you doing the business? Do you and Nima just help each other out? Like what's the situation there?
So when Pink Dolphin first started, it was me and Young L, which we'll kind of go back and touch on that. But at that time, he was doing his music stuff, you know. So I was I was doing every part of the business, and this is before Nima came on board. So I was doing everything from the creative stuff to the business stuff. So I had like a hand in doing all that stuff. So then once Nima came on board to handle more of the business stuff so I could focus more on creative, we kind of split it up like that. But, you know, we still dabble like in both of it, you know, and we all like collectively do marketing and stuff like that. So I would say like we all wear like a bunch of hats, like you kind of got to as a young entrepreneur.
In the beginning, that's the whole game, bro.
Yeah. So
it's understanding every single level to the business. I love
exactly.
it. So let's jump right into the story. So you're in the Bay. Did you go to college or no?
I went to college for 2 years and then I dropped out, moved to LA. But
I would have guessed that.
But it was always like school was always like a backup plan for me. Like I always knew I was going to do something else, but I didn't know what it was going to be. And it's like, you can't really like, I'm Middle Eastern, I'm like first generation. So it's like, you know, your parents are like super strict on like school and all this stuff. So it's like, I couldn't just drop out of school without a plan, you know? So it was always like a backup plan for me, but in the back of my head, I always kind of knew I wasn't going to necessarily do that, but it was always a backup plan for me until everything aligned and the risk was like made sense for me to do it. So
what were you into?
College,
what was your major in college like?
So when I went to college, I didn't want to do an art degree because I looked into it and I was just like, I kind of like learned how to do everything by myself, like internet, Google, YouTube, tutorials, all that stuff. So I was like, I need to learn more about the business side of things. So I was doing business finance in school, and I actually learned a lot of stuff like the couple of years I was there, like stuff that I still apply back to it. So
everyone hates on college, but the reality is it took me 5 years to graduate. I had 2.1 GPA, but looking back, if I paid more attention in finance class with Microsoft Excel, I'd be more equipped.
That's the one shit I'm like mad I didn't all the way learn was Excel,
me too,
bro.
Man. I just know like the sum function and those super
basic
basic
me too,
thing.
super basic.
Super
and
basic.
I see cats on it now, and I'm like, man, I wish I'd like took those classes seriously, because like I kind of bullshitted my way through certain things too. Like I was smart, but I was like I was working 3 jobs in school and trying to do Pink Dolphin. So it was like you can only do so much, you know, and I'm just trying to kind of get by with the school part of it, like where it's like good enough, you know.
For the young entrepreneurs out here, having a sales base and a finance base and having a basic understanding of numbers, Microsoft Excel for me is a huge thing.
Oh man, if I could go back and like pay attention to those Excel classes, I should have done that shit, you know what I mean? So if you're in those, like, take them classes seriously, because Microsoft Excel is like a huge tool that like I wish I was better at. I might go back and take some classes. Like
I've never heard anyone besides me agree with me on that. It's the people that are good at Microsoft Excel can do some crazy ninja shit that it blows my mind. So what type of jobs did you have?
It was just like random like bullshit jobs. This is like, we're talking like kind of right after the recession hit, so it was like, bro, it was crazy hard getting any kind of job. Like,
I feel like you were like a Foot Locker guy or
bullshit
something.
jobs. No, I was actually, it sucked because my first job I had when I was 15 and a half, 16, I was at Papa Murphy's taking baked pizza. So I kind of like, just because that was on my resume, I just kept having to get food service jobs, and I fucking hated it, because like food service is such a tough industry. Like, salute to everybody that works in that, because that shit's way harder than working retail. You know, people come in and they're dumbass hungry, and people are just angry all the time. So you're dealing with hungry ass people all the time. So it's like, I don't know.
What's one thing you learned from working in the food industry?
Shit.
That you don't want to work in the food industry?
Yeah.
I feel like
I was in the back like making pizzas, bro. Like I worked there. I worked at Mountain Mike's Pizza. I worked at I worked at the pizza spot in the cafeteria in my college. Like, actually physically making pizzas. And then I worked in the Macy's, I worked at Macy's in the back department, like stocking stuff, like taking stuff out of boxes, taking the plastic off of stuff, putting it on. So I was like
you would have a really good quitting story. Like you just like just storming out, like cussing everyone out.
I can't even, oh man. You know, I can't really remember. I don't really remember actually like how I quit some of these jobs. At one point I was working at our they opened this water park in my city. I was working in the water park like during the summer, like in the kitchen. That was terrible. I hated that job. So like at one point I was working 3 jobs all at once. Like I was doing Macy's, I was working at my school cafeteria, and I was doing this water park job. So it was like 3. There's at one point there was a time where they were all crossing over, and it was 3 jobs, and it was crazy. Like I don't even know how I was doing it, because I was in school too, and I was trying to do the brand.
I love this shit right here. This is the great foundation and genesis for an entrepreneur, that you were just eating shit, 3 fucking jobs, flipping pizzas, water park, wild. So that led into Pink Dolphin. Let's talk about Pink Dolphin. How'd you come up? What does Pink Dolphin mean? Let's set some context. What does that mean?
So a little bit of backstory on how it even came about. So before I didn't know anything about fashion, about clothing, about any of like streetwear, any of that stuff, right? I mean, obviously, like, you know, we all used to shop on Karmaloop and all that stuff when we were little kids. So like I knew about all the cool brands, but I never actually knew I was going to do a brand. Like I love shopping, and I knew what was cool. I knew all the brands, but I wasn't like, I'm going to do clothing, you know, I'm going to do like a streetwear brand. So I was really into music and the hip hop culture growing up as like a little kid when I was in elementary school, right? So in the 7th and 8th grade, I wanted to be a rapper. So I had GarageBand on my computer. I was like recording myself. Me and my boy had like a little group together, and then I just realized that shit was just so saturated, and I was like, I'm never gonna make it as a rapper, like, you know what I mean? So then I was like, I want to be a producer, because I was always trying to figure out like how I could be in the music game somehow, or like all these artists that I fuck with, like I want to figure out like how I could work with them, you know? So
Who were those artists too? Like E40?
So like, yeah, I mean, it was at the time I lived in the Bay, so the local Bay Area hip hop scene was like really big.
Tell me
at the time. The hyphy movement was going on at the time. So this is like 06, 07.
Clyde
the
Carson.
Team, Federation, E40, The Pack, Keek the Sneak, like, you know what I mean, Diligence, Team Knock, like, you know.
That was my shit.
Go Dave, like, man, there's so much cool shit going on in the Bay Area, you know what I'm saying, at the time. And I mean, these guys were all like, a lot of these guys were like hometown heroes, you know? So it was, Berkeley. At the time when I was a little kid, like this was like, these guys were huge, like mega stars to me, you know? So then like stopped doing the rapping thing. I was like, I want to make beats. I want to be a producer. So this when GarageBand was out, like I was on GarageBand making beats, and then Fruity Loops, you know what I mean? Like we were on there, me and my boy, we were like making beats, and then I was trying to figure out how I could get placements on all these artists I liked. So I was like, man, this shit's so saturated, like everybody's trying to do it. So like, how could we come with a different angle on how we could get in front of these artists? Because you can't just like, this is when MySpace was popping, so the best way to get to these people is like sending them messages on MySpace. Hopefully they read it, you know? Mm-hmm. So I'm like, I can't just be another guy hitting them up like, yo, I got beats for you. You know, it's like, how many of those messages are they getting? So we were like, one of our other boys, was 3 of us. He was good at Photoshop. So I kind of learned some things from him on Photoshop, and we started this thing where we started making MySpace layouts for artists. So we would message these guys and approach them as like, we'll make a free MySpace layout for you. But we had like our page, it was all done up. We had like, it was like the craziest layouts, right? So like people loved the way our shit looked. So every time they looked at it, they're like, yeah, I want that. So then that's how we'd get in contact with them. And then it was really all so we could also like pitch them like our beats and like get that going. But then I just realized everybody loved the art stuff so much because not too many people could do it. So we kind of, business kind of transitioned into us just doing MySpace layouts. So we had like this package, it was like $300 at the time. We would like pull up on you, do a photo shoot for you, and then come back, edit everything and make it into a layout, and maybe do like a, you know, like a matching like mixtape cover, album art to go back to the page, so it all like ties and it's all cohesive.
And you were what, like 17?
So I'm like, this is like 9th, 10th grade. So I'm like 15,
early.
16. So we were just like, you know, always like a hustler's mentality, always trying to figure out how we could make some money.
So it does, like, because the Pink Dolphins aesthetic kind of reminds me of like that MySpace aesthetic back in the day, those bold, like bright colors. Right. Kind of like that simple aesthetic, like,
yeah,
man.
So it was like, so at one point, like, it was really cool because I'd worked with almost every single like poppin' artist in the Bay. Like they had a MySpace page done by us, so you would go on their page, and then would have our little thing on there, powered by Drop Media Group. That was the name of our company. And you would click, it would come back to our page, and we were just getting so many just like random like aspiring artists, people that are like just other people that would just hit us up and want to buy these packages. So we were just it was booming. Like it was crazy, bro.
MySpace template layouts. Okay, so you go from
so that's
Pizza
kinda
Boy, water parks, MySpace templates.
This is before I was kind of working those jobs, but that was obviously like some of that was in college later on. But yeah, the MySpace stuff was like way before then, so like early high school days. So we're doing that. That's kind of how I learned how to design, like Photoshop. I didn't know how to use Illustrator yet. I didn't know what that really was, but we were on Photoshop. I learned how to like do coding and stuff like that. A lot of it through just either people I knew, or it was like YouTube tutorials, Google tutorials, just like teaching ourselves how to do it and just getting better by practicing and, you know, just doing new projects for people. So that was kind of like we were doing that for a while, and that's how I met the pack. Was we were working with them, and like L and B, Young L and Lil B, they had this group called SS, and it was like a little side group from the pack. So
let's give some context too. The name of the song was called Vans, right?
Van song, yeah.
Yes, everyone should YouTube the pack Vans. That song, I mean, was that the biggest song out at one point in like the world? It was
like the number. I want to say it was like on top of Billboard for sure, like a top 5 song on Billboard at one point.
And how'd you get in touch with them? Did you do that? Did you do their MySpace temp?
Yeah. So that's how I got in touch with them. But they were like hard to get in touch with because they were signed to a major label. They were like one of the biggest groups out of the Bay Area at the time. So instead of going like directly trying to do it with the group, I was hitting up like the individual members trying to see who would hit back, you know? And like I want to say like it was really like one of like L's younger brothers or somebody that I kind of got in touch with and kind of like led me to them. And then one day we went to Berkeley, and we were all in Berkeley, and you know, like Lil B, Young L, they were huge at the time, bro. Like L was like the Pharrell of the Bay Area, you know, like literally. Like I remember like you go on MySpace, you'd go on like these guys' pages, they'd have like the most like crazy amount of comments and likes on their photos. And
bro, I used to spend hours on that shit on their MySpaces.
Yeah, like it was just like the swag was just impeccable. Like just the way they were dressing. All of them, Uno, Stunna, BL, all of them. Like
Stunna,
it was just like it was so unique. It was so different, you know. Yeah. So it was really cool getting in touch with them. We went like I remember the day we were in Berkeley, and we did this photo shoot for. This was for SS as a group, so like it was L, B, and like L's 2 younger brothers. It was like the 4 of them was SS. So we did like the photo shoot. We did the MySpace. So it kind of started out there. Like they were like, "Yo, do this thing for like this new group we're starting," and then me and L just really clicked, you know. So like. And he was my favorite. He was like my favorite artist out of the group. So like it was just dope. Like we just like vibed out, and like I started like going over to his house. We were kicking it. Like I was kind of turned into like his art guy. Like I was making mixtape covers for him, helping him with just like technical stuff, you know, like little technical internet shit.
I want to stop you for a second because we've loosely known each other for probably about 5 years now, and I've always liked how you move strategically. Mm-hmm. And when you meet people like that, for the people listening, I always say that you can't be somebody's fan and do business with them. Right. And I feel like with you're very strategic in how you approach that relationship. Yeah. And you worked with him as if you were his friend, correct?
Right, exactly. Yeah. And I think it was also his vibe, like how we vibed, you know what I mean, was the reason why we ended up like clicking and like being friends. Like we had similar personalities, you know? Taste. So it worked out, and like, yeah, I was like a huge fan, but like we were just like, I don't know, you were friends. Like, yeah, we were friends. That's like I would go over there, like kick it. We like met his mom. Like we were like, you know what I mean? Like we were just like I just like mom. Yeah, just be over there. Like it was cool, you know. And I was all the way in Fremont, so I'd be taking the BART up to Berkeley. Like I didn't have a car at the time, you know. So
Wow.
It was dope. That's kind of how that whole relationship kind of started with me and him, you know. And this was before any of the clothing stuff, right? So
well, I'm gonna tell my story now because this is good. Because right around this time, so I was in Chicago. I grew up in Chicago, and in high school, I was the biggest Pac fan. I brought the Bay Area music to Chicago. I was like the kid who was handing out the Bay Area mixtapes and stuff. So I was putting all like the artists on there. And when I went to Arizona for college, the Pac actually did a concert, and I hit him up. I'm like, yo, like, you guys got to do this club after your show. So
What'd you hit him up on Instagram?
dude, I don't even remember how
probably
long.
MySpace.
Yeah, I don't remember how.
I was never even on MySpace. My mind is fucking blown right now.
But they said yeah, and literally after the show, we went to the club, and me and Young L and all of them got to talking. Obviously, I've told them big fan. I made shirts for them. It was so funny. Like literally, everyone known me as like the music kid in like my school. So it was nuts. Me and him actually stayed in touch after that. So after that show, we would hop on AIM. I don't know if you guys know what AIM is.
AOL
it was AOL's instant
I
message.
was huge on there, by the way.
Yeah.
That was a big one.
So
that was
me,
my
yellow
shit.
logo.
So me and Young L used to chat like all the time, just talking about like what
He
we were
was
doing
big
and
on there,
stuff.
on the sidekick.
Oh, he loved that shit.
Heavy.
Sidekick.
And I was always like, at this time I was only doing illustration, so I had no idea how to use Photoshop, Illustrator, none of that. And we would just talk back and forth on what us two were doing. And literally one day he's like, yo, like I'm starting this clothing brand.
No
He's
way.
like, I'm like, finally, like you're doing something. He's like, yeah, it's called Pink Dolphin. And I just will never forget that. And like, we kind of fizzled off after that. And obviously I was in Chicago. Obviously I was in Berkeley.
So
and
you guys
shit.
are almost partners.
But yeah, during this,
almost.
during the same time, like literally.
Bless you didn't take him.
Yeah.
Thank you, bro. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. You leave me
now we're
hanging,
here
bro.
in,
Leave me hanging.
Oh, shit.
There you go.
Yeah.
Now we're here, and that's just the funniest story. So like literally I saw your brand start from like before to like now. So seeing
That's
that,
crazy.
So let's hear it from your
Yeah.
point of view. What happened with you? So you guys are homies.
You know what's actually crazy? If we go back to the MySpace story, you know who else I met through the MySpace days? Like, obviously, he's like huge. One of my like good friends now is G-Eazy.
Are you
And
serious?
like his story is
Yeah.
crazy because he's also, I don't know if you remember him from MySpace days, but like,
No, hell no.
bro, he was
Was he
like,
Gerald then, or was he?
no, he
Jeezy?
was still G-Eazy. Like he's been G-Eazy for a long time, like since he first started his shit. But like he was doing like a very similar thing to like what I was doing, but he was actually like an artist. Like, so he was rapping, but he was shooting his own music videos. He was doing his own MySpace layouts. He was doing his own like album covers, everything. So like when we had our company on, he had his thing. Like it was almost like it wasn't really competition because he was doing it for himself almost. Like he was, but like it's crazy because he's like raw on Photoshop, Illustrator, all that stuff too.
Wow,
Like he
that's
knows
wild.
he knows how to use all that stuff because he came up in the same exact era. But like it's crazy. Like I've met so many people through that shit back in the day. Like
Not enough people talk about the MySpace era.
Game's
and
crazy.
like the entrepreneurship of MySpace.
The craziest thing is the
Yeah.
Bay. The Bay is like the Jews, bro. The Jews stick together. The Bay people like stick together heavy. I feel like.
Yeah.
Like I feel like you and all like the music lane, the NBA, all those lanes. I feel like every time I see you like with one of the guys, it's like
Yeah.
Bay legend, every single time. It's like
it's like a lot of we take a lot of pride like where we're from, and like we feel like we set a lot of trends, and like shit gets stolen a lot from like other cities steal our shit, but like it's all good. It's the way shit goes.
Wait, did you
But-
drink hyphy juice back in the day?
Oh,
I
yeah.
used to get hyphy
Clyde
juice.
Carson's shit?
Yeah, I used to get it sent to me from the Bay to Chicago.
Yeah, because
For
you guys didn't
pre-games.
have it out there. Yeah.
Nah, dude, no one knew who like these people
They were
were
selling
back
that
in
shit at
Chicago.
like 7-Eleven
I
in
know.
Oakland. Like it was
Yeah.
crazy.
I remember at Agenda
Yeah,
when
Jenna,
I met, when
we
I met
actually
Clyde
got
Carson,
we actually got a little Uno and Clark Carson like
Jeff
literally
was-
in our booth.
Jeff was
Really?
overly excited. This was like
Oh, yeah.
5-6 years ago with
Yeah,
Melon. I
that
remember
was
getting a
fire.
pic with Clyde Carson. I never even heard
What
of
brand
him.
was this for?
When we were with Melon, the
with
hat
Melon,
company.
yeah.
Oh,
Clyde
yeah,
Carson
yeah,
just
yeah.
cruised by and like no one knew he was.
Uno,
Jeff,
we're like, oh, we got all
Yeah.
the Bay people here. It's crazy.
Man.
so how did it
Yeah.
happen? So how did Pink Dolphin start?
So me and El we were working, you know what I mean? So he was just like, he had this idea for the brand, and he was like, I got this idea for this clothing line called Pink Dolphin. Pink Dolphin was actually supposed to be a rock band. Him and B were going to start. And then like he was just like, they turned into a clothing line. And like B was actually like originally like supposed to be a part of it because they were going to start this rock group and then turn into like this clothing line idea. And
Base
You know,
God.
he I was one of his guys that was doing like a lot of the artwork stuff for him. So he was like, yo, do you want to like, I got this idea for this clothing line called Pink Dolphin. Like,
That's fire.
do you want to help me with it? And I was
Proximity is key, my
I was
man.
like, let's do it.
Yeah.
Like, you know, that's how
That's
it started.
crazy.
So
And Pink Dolphin, like, is that like Purple Cow? Is this like a unique name, or he just came up with a color and an animal? Did he just go that route? Red Bull? Is he just going?
you know, I think it was just, I don't know how he really came up with the name. I mean, I think it was just like, they were just like, everything they do was so based, you know what I mean? Like, it was like, everything was so.
Base God, baby.
And it was just like, everything they were doing at the time was just so like radical. Like, you didn't really know like what it was, but it was just dope, you know? So, you know, I mean, some people have tied it back to like, you know, the Blue Dolphin pill was like really popping in the Bay at the time, or just like in the country, I think. But it wasn't really like a drug reference. It was just, you know, and pink dolphins are actually real animals, so
Interesting.
they're actually very rare animals. So it was kind of like a spin on the whole thing. I mean, like pink dolphin, they're real animals. They're rare.
Before Pink Dolphin, I mean, like the closest thing was like ice cream and like BBC and that kind of stuff. Like you guys were like kind of the more raw version of it, not so like high fashion. You were like almost accessible and like more street.
Yeah, I mean that was all like BBC ice cream, Pharrell, Nego, like NERD, all that stuff, Neptunes, like that was all shit that we
Inspired by?
Yeah, super inspired by. And like that, I mean, like you look at how like even the pack, like what they were doing, it was like, you know, all the skateboarding, all that shit. Like Pharrell was like a huge inspiration for them. You know what I mean? With all that, and just like the way cats were dressing. I mean, we all put our own twist on it, you know. But like that was like a huge inspiration for us growing up. So
One of the most interesting things that I've always found with your brands, I think the most impressive thing with your brands is, ironically enough, I just showed you in my bathroom a piece of art, and it just had the colors. Like with your brand, immediately you just think of those colors.
Yeah.
It's neon, you know, green, blue, a pink, obviously. Was that since the beginning, or was that something by design? Did you guys hammer that home? Because you guys have fucking owned those colors.
Yeah.
For sure.
So what happened was like the first year, so we launched in 2008, right? It was like spring 2008 when the brand started, and it started with these 4 t-shirts that had this one logo on it, which was the cross with the Japanese letters. So that's our promo logo, and the Japanese letters say Pink Dolphin in Japanese. So
Never knew that. Wow.
so they so that was like our first logo, and we were running that like for a while, and it was just like, it was cool. Like people didn't really know what it was. It just looked cool. So like,
Dude, that was on my wallpaper on my phone, dude. Like
the Pink Dolphin
2009,
logo.
like right when that came out, it's
like, because it was
crazy
just so
nostalgic
like
now.
like no, like if you just showed it to him, like people be like, what is this, you know? But it was dope. So like so like that was our core logo, and like we were using pink to like an extent, but we weren't really using all those colors yet, right? So the line hadn't really developed. Like we just had like that one graphic for a while.
And this is what year?
This is 2008 when we first launched. So the way we actually launched the brand, we all put like $400 into the shit and just printed like our first run of tees. And we only had like, I want to say like, it was like 50 t-shirts, you know, like it wasn't that much stuff. And we put it online on we had a little Big Cartel website.
Big Cartel.
Wait, was it Pink Dolphin
Dot Big Cartel.
Wow.
Yes.
Didn't even have the domain
Didn't
name.
even have a domain. We didn't have a domain
Wow.
name for like the first 2-3 years. Like it was just Big Cartel.
I had
And
a
we
Big
were just
Cartel, too.
and we were just everything, all the marketing, everything we were doing was all strictly through MySpace. Like we didn't.
And what was it? Just networking through there, and just people that knew you
just
through there?
networking through there. I mean, it was like the pack was so big on MySpace. I mean, we were all like, MySpace was just like, that was our shit. That was Instagram, you know? That was the biggest social media. That was the only social network at the time, really. So that's just where we were, you know, like now it's like not 90% of like the shit we be doing is all through Instagram for our brands, right? Like majority of it is through Instagram. So like it was the same thing, but just on MySpace. So
what did that first trench years, you know, a couple of years look like? When did Nima come into the play, and then when did you guys transition to more people as a part of the team? When do you have an identity? When do you do this full time? Like, what was that next step? That first.
So like for a while it was just me and L would be on tour, so he would be marketing our stuff. You know, he was there on tour with Gym Class Heroes, with Tyga was on that tour back in the day. It was crazy.
Ready for this? I launched my first clothing company with Gym Class Heroes with Travi, and I threw a party in my fraternity house. You know, I was on the couch. Tyga, when he was 15.
Yeah, that's
wow,
crazy.
Dude.
Yeah, because Tyga was that's his cousin. Travis' cousin. So that's why.
Oh no, I knew he was. I thought it was.
Or
No,
cousin or some sort of family
Yeah.
ties. So like
Yeah.
that's why he was like on the road with them so early on, and
then they were all popping them because I launched my clothing company in college in 2007. So it was all around the same time.
Yeah.
Wow, it's fucking nuts, dude.
Yeah, it's so crazy how it's
It
all
is.
like,
Yeah.
you know what I mean?
This is
How it's
before
all
me and you met,
transpired
'cause
to
we
them.
met-
This is before. This is when like LRG was hitting and shit. I remember this like time.
Because we met in
so
2010.
Yeah.
2010,
After school.
yeah.
So it's you printing the t-shirts, hustling, and then he's out there getting
So he was
really
doing all the
inexpensive marketing for you because
yeah.
he's just
he was just on the road
wearing
doing
the shit.
shows, but like they were like, you know, they would be like around Lil Wayne, like all these people, like
Yeah.
at Scott Storch's house, like they were lit, you know what I mean? They
Yeah.
were doing all this stuff, so it was that was the marketing, you know what I mean? And like he would be on the road, like he'd be giving it to people, like we'd be getting looks, like, and then I would just be at home, like just, you know what I mean, like making sure the Myspace was popping. We were just like running the back end with the thing, and it was like I was in high school, like, you know what I mean. So it was like this was like in between junior and senior year summer was like when it started, and then like going into senior year. So it was like, and at that time, you know what I mean, like when you're in the 12th grade, it's like you're like about to like graduate, you know what I mean? It's like it's kind of like your fuck around year.
Yeah.
So you're like, it's like everybody's like focused on just like all this other shit. Like
Yeah.
then the people aren't really thinking about like, oh, like what am I doing for my future, or how am I?
That's when like they're hitting the,
how am
hitting
I
the
starting
alcohol
a
hard.
business and all this
Yeah.
shit. Like people are just starting to drink, like go to
Yeah.
parties, all this stuff, right? And so like it was. I'm trying to like bro, there would be times I would just be at the crib, like I wouldn't even come out. My friends thought like shit was wrong with me. Like they were like, what's up with you? And I'm just like, I would just not be answering people's calls. Like I would just be at home working because I just saw like something that something to get my foot in the door with like just being, cause I never really knew what I wanted to be exactly, but some sort of entrepreneur, you know? And like I always knew school was like this plan B option. So this was like a great way for me to get my foot in the door. So when the opportunity presented itself, I was just like, going for this shit like fully, you know? And I didn't really know what I was doing, but we were just doing it, you know? So it was, and at the time it was like I was doing everything. Like I was designing, like I'd be designing the stuff, I'd be figuring out like bro, finding vendors and shit back then was like not an easy thing. Like figuring out where to print stuff, like all these little things, get woven labels made, you take a shit to like a place to get the stuff sewn.
There wasn't
on
even
it.
digital printing was probably
there was no digital printing.
Wow.
Or if it was mad expensive.
Yeah, I think it was. It was just really, it was really expensive.
And it was screen printing again. So when was that moment? Obviously you were in with guys that you had looked up to and, you know, you love their music, but was there a moment where you're like, you know, maybe Lil Wayne was wearing it or someone wore it or you're like, wow, this shit is real right now? When was that that first moment for you?
The first like big person that rocked it was Wiz back in like, I would say like maybe like 2009, 2010. And like those dudes were like, you know, they're like the homies, Wiz, Will, all them. So like, but like early on, like I'd be like, I remember they were still not that big either. Like he was still doing like small runs. Like he was doing like Catalyst, Santa Cruz. You know what I mean? Like somewhat decent sized rooms, but like they weren't. This is like right around Cushion Orange Juice days, you know. So it was cool. Like I would like be going just like I'll be driving down like trying to catch them, like go on the bus, like get them like a hoodie or whatever, and it was cool because they always just fucked with us from day one. And that was like probably the first like big look that it was like an artist that I really like, that I listened to, but was also a big artist. So when he was fucking with our shit, I was like, okay.
And nowadays it's people are wearing it, you know, you see it on Instagram, people are tagging it. When you got that, what'd you get at them? Was it a picture and then you guys use it in marketing, or was it just...
It was a picture. It was like our banner on our MySpace for like the season for like
God,
whatever.
I love that.
The hoodie he was wearing was like part of the next season that was coming out, so it was on like the banner on the MySpace. Like,
was it in your PDF at the trade shows with like celebrities?
No, we weren't even doing trade shows then, bro. We didn't even like. I didn't even really know. I didn't understand what trade shows really were. Like I would go to. This was back when Magic. It wasn't even Agenda yet. It was still Magic. So like, L had like so many ties. Like they had so many ties through all these clothing brands that wanted them like at these shows. So I would go with them, and like I don't think like, you know, back then like a lot of the artists, they don't even know what these things really are. They're just like some brands paying them to come to a show. They don't even know what these shows are really
Yep.
for, you know? So like we'd be going to these shows, but I didn't really understand like that what was going on at these shows. Like I just thought it was just like this swag convention. Like it was
You're
just,
fucking 20 years old.
yeah.
Shit.
Not even. I was going to Vegas when I was like 18. Like couldn't even get into clubs. Like they were looking at me nuts. Like could be like, why are you even in Vegas? You know? But man, but like it was crazy. Like at that era, like I was doing a little bit of everything. I was, you know, getting the product made, doing product shots, editing it, putting it on the website, going to my parents' garage, shipping the stuff. You know, it was like literally doing customer service. It was like, so I did like all these different parts of the business. So once the brand took off and we were able to hire more people, it's like you do all these different roles, so you know, like if somebody's fucking up or somebody's bullshitting or somebody's taking too long, you're like, I've done this before, like I know how long it takes. You know, and that's like something that's cool about starting there and doing every part of the business. And
Me and Jeff did all that shit in the beginning. Right. I was the customer service rep. Shopiconic@gmail.com. That was me.
Yep.
That was me. Those are the good old days, though, right?
Good old days.
That was
like,
that's in the gutter doing some crazy shit. No, that shit was crazy. So I'm sure a lot of people that are watching that, you know, want to start a clothing company, they start and it's just you. It's the generalist that's wearing all the hats. Mm-hmm. What was your first hire? Tell us about the people that you brought on.
So Nima, who's our CEO, he's been a family friend of mine since, you know, we were little kids, but he's a few years older than me, and when we were younger, like, you know, like the age gap is like, it's like a big thing back in the day. Like someone's
if
like
you're 1 year older, it's like
you're 1 year older, and it feels like it's like 5 years older than you.
Yeah.
Right. So he's like two and a half years older than me. But me and his younger brother are the same age, so we were always like really good friends. And like he was always around like when we were younger, but we weren't friends like that. But like he was always around. So, you know, once we were kind of doing our thing with the brand, the first couple of years, you know, he had actually just graduated college for business finance. So he was doing the same degree I was doing. And, you know, he was out looking for jobs, trying to figure out what he was going to do now. Now he's got the degree and all this stuff. So he saw what I was doing with the brand. So like he calls me one day, and I used to be over at their house all the time. So he'd seen like the clothes and like all the stuff that was going on.
Hanging with his brother.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So he like seen the stuff around, and then like he looked into it and he was like, you guys are like kind of doing something, like, you know what I mean, like what's up with this thing? And like he was like, how much money are you guys making, like what's the, like who's doing what? And I'm just like, I'm like basically like doing it all, like, you know, L's doing the marketing, but he's doing his music shit. I'm like pretty much doing everything else. So he was like, and I was at school, I was still in school at the time, 3 jobs, like, and doing this. So he was like, yo, like, let me, like, maybe I come on, like, help you guys, like, with some of the finance stuff that maybe you're not so as good at, or maybe it's just, like, you have so much going on with everything else that you can't really, like, look at every part of the business in detail. Maybe I could help you guys out, make more money. So that's kind of how that came about. He came on and, like, kind of just proved his worth, you know, the first, like, 6 months, and then, you know, we ended up bringing him in, and we were all just like, we each owned a third of the brand. We brought him in, we gave him a third of the company. Before that, it was me and L, just 50-50. So he was really like, I guess, like the next employee that was brought on, but he was also an owner. Yep. So for a while, it was just us, you know, it was just the 3 of us doing the thing. And for some context, how hard did you guys go? You don't have to tell me now the revenue, but how hard did you guys go in revenue with just you 3? Couple $100,000? I would say the first real year, so he came on 2011, beginning of 2011, and before that, 2008, 9, and 10, I was, you know, I graduated high school, go to college. So it was my first year in college. And it's freshman year. I'm living on campus, so you know how that shit goes. Like it's just like you're so distracted by all this like new
crazy shit,
all this new crazy shit. You're away from home, you're not living with your parents, there's like all these parties, there's girls, there's all this stuff going on. So it was like really hard for me to focus, but I was still like doing it like it was like a hobby. But I would say like that year I went to college, it was kind of like, it was really like this really became a hobby kind of like, because I was like, how am I gonna make money, you know? So I was working 3 jobs. We were still doing drops, but it was like a like
Glorified
side thing, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I was going to San Jose State. I was living at the dorms. We were like printing our stuff at I was printing our stuff at some printer like up the street that was like walking distance that I could walk from campus and go and like try to figure it out. But it was just like, it was really hard to squeeze it in at the time. And then
Nima made it real.
So then what made it real was my second year, my parents were like, we're not going to pay for you to like live on campus again. Like my parents' house like 20 minutes from school. Like it doesn't make any sense. So unless you want to pay for it yourself. So I moved home and I was like kind of bummed out about that because I was like in this bubble of like the school shit going on. But like as soon as that moment happened, I moved back home. I realized I was like, all this like partying and all this shit that's going on, like this isn't doing anything for me. Like what, like, and then that's when I got really like I ended up quitting all my jobs, getting on unemployment checks, and I was like, I'm gonna just collect these unemployment checks and just really go hard with the brand. And I guess really got to figure this out.
Yeah, you figured it out early because a lot of people don't even figure that out. So years after college.
Young, mature adults.
It was like the best decision for me was moving home. Because that's when it clicked. Like if I had stayed on campus the second year, I would have been doing the same shit. You know what I mean? Just partying, doing all that shit. And
everything you're saying is the antithesis of what everyone else thinks.
Yeah, and it was super dope living on campus that I got to experience that. Like that
probably
was
like the same story as you.
Really
Sophomore
cool.
year, my parents took. I didn't choose to go take out, but my parents took me out of college, and that's exactly when the same thing happened to me. Where
as soon as I was taken out of that environment, I was back at my parents' house.
All of a sudden, you're focused.
I was like,
it's so
I don't
humbling.
want to be at my parents' house.
Yeah.
So I was like, why am I here? I need to figure out how to make money and get the fuck out of here.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Like, so that's when the switch really flipped, and I started going hard. And then that's when the brand started doing more numbers than it was the previous years. Then that's when Nima kind of caught on to like, okay, I see you doing something with this thing. Because it was kind of like, that's when it started bubbling. I was out there like, that's when like we were getting the whiz looks. And like, you know, I was out there doing more shit because I quit all my jobs. All I was doing was school. And then there was no distractions. I'd come home. I was doing classes like 2 days a week, 2 or 3 days a week. So the other days I was just working on this shit like 24/7. So.
And where are you working out of with
my parents' house?
So it's you and him working in the basement?
No. So this is before he had came on. So when he came on, he moves to LA. He was living in Tennessee. He moves to LA, and we got this loft downtown right here, actually on Olympic and Hope.
Hey.
So L was living across the street, Staples Center, at the other, I forget what the name of the lofts are, but like literally right there by the Shell on Olympic.
Wow.
So he was living over there. We get the apartment across the street at the Reserve Lofts over there at the old bank. So.
Wow.
We got this little small, like I want to say like 800 square foot, maybe 1,000 square foot loft. And so he moved to LA and I was still in the Bay, right? So I was still in school. He had just finished. So he was out here. He was like, yo, I'm going to be out here. Like we need to be in LA. Like, you know what I mean? We need to have presence in LA. Because in the Bay, we had kind of reached a ceiling almost, you know, like you kind of reach a ceiling with like
you knew who you knew.
I knew everybody. Like I kind of like, it was like there was only so much you could do. We had to get out of there and do like just try to like make it go global with this thing, right? And we just couldn't stay at home forever. So he comes to LA, and I'm like, and obviously I want to be in LA bad. Like LA's like popping at this time. It's like this is 2011 now. So like. The energy in LA was like high at the time. Like everybody was kind of moving to LA. Like all these artists that used to be in Miami, New York, everybody's moving to LA. The energy was crazy high out here. So every time I'd come out here, I'd be in LA for like a weekend. I feel like the amount of work I'd get done just being out here and networking, being around like just, you know, just how much like fashion stuff goes on out here. You got so many like different factories, different like vendors, different stuff going on. Like there was just so much stuff going on out here. I was like, we need to be in LA.
So were you printing downtown then? Now that you're downtown?
So we started shifting from printing in the Bay to like printing out here. Found our printer, still at the same printer after all these years.
Loyalty,
which is crazy. Like best printer in the game. Like
that's
not gonna give out the secret sauce, but
you don't have to. I wouldn't if I was you. Fuck.
But yeah, man. So I was still back and forth because I was in school, and Nemo's holding down the loft out here, and every time I'd come to LA, I'd stay in the loft. And the way it was set up was crazy. So we had like the downstairs of the loft was our office, and like we moved our warehouse. So like it used to be my parents' garage. We moved it into
now
the
you're
loft.
pick, pack, and shipping in the loft.
Pick, pack, and shipping out of the loft. It's like a little portion of it is like the warehouse, and then the other part of it's like the office area, and then there's like a little showroom, and it was all like in this little loft.
Mark, just to stop you real quick. Do you remember I used to sleep up on the loft in Mellon?
Wow,
When I used to come to California, I used to sleep in the warehouse. Literally, there was a couch.
I forgot about that.
And it was free. Literally, it was freezing. I used to like get in like a blanket.
Startup days.
Yeah, and
that was in Orange County.
In Orange County, I used to sleep in the warehouse on a couch, freezing my ass off. But
Bro,
dude, we have like the same fucking
It's
shit.
crazy. So the loft that we were staying in, they had this little staircase that went up to this like, you know, the little like
Same
storage,
shit.
like a little like storage
Yeah.
area. It's not a living space, but
but you were living there.
So that's where we were living, because the whole downstairs was the warehouse, the office space, and the showroom. So then you'd go upstairs. Like people didn't know that existed. Like when we'd have like, we were trying to be professional, you know what I mean? So it was like people would come in, it would like, okay, it's our office showroom. And then you couldn't see any like bedrooms or anything, but there was this little staircase that went upstairs, this little like, it was like a little crawl space almost, like you couldn't stand up in it all the way, right?
There is some common threads in a lot of the people that we've already had on, and they're all teetering in the same world right now.
Bro, we go like me and Nima, like the first weekend we're getting the loft, we go to the fashion district, buy like this sheet of black fabric, go upstairs, like put it on the divide the top of
black
divide the middle of the little crawl space up, like this your size, my side. I got like a mattress on the floor, and I didn't really care, because when I'd come to LA, like I would only be in LA for a few days, and when I was here, I was just working the whole time. So it was just some shit to just take a nap. You know, it wasn't really like, I wasn't tripping on that, because I was just trying to work. So it was like, as long as I had a little spot to, you know, be able to sleep. But that's like, that whole grind was also a crazy grind for 6 months. Like before I actually ended up permanently moving to LA in 2012, I was still in school. I hadn't dropped out yet, because I was trying to like speed through. I was still trying to graduate. Like in my head, I was like, maybe I could graduate, but like, no, I'm still do this. So I had classes 2 days a week in the Bay, and I had flights booked out like 2-3 months at a time. So it was like cheap Southwest flights, and I would be out. I would have class like Tuesday, Thursday. As soon as Thursday class ended, like I was in San Jose, so I'd be straight to the airport there, and then I was in LA Thursday night, and then I'd be here Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Monday night, I'm on the flight back to the Bay, and I'd literally just study on the flight back. Like the flights were my only time to do homework and to study, because as soon as I got to LA, it was just like, I'm working on the brand, and that's it. So it was a crazy
these little
grind.
fucking things that like people need to know this shit. Like with us, we were part-time in the beginning. We were working 5 a.m. to 8 a.m. and then we had another job. So at 6 p.m. when the other guy left, that was the fucking greatest moment of our life, and we were just working fucking all night. That's
wild that we both used to sleep in the warehouse.
We got to get a picture of your warehouse. Show you our warehouse.
Yeah,
get that shit.
I got pictures of it. I'll send it to you.
Yeah, too. I used to fall down the stairs because it was pitch black. Obviously, when everyone would leave, and obviously we'd close everything up. I'm the only one in there. It's super creepy. Like you weren't even there.
No, I've slept on that couch.
Yeah, and it got
before.
so cold. Literally, I would trip because it's like there's very narrow stairs down to like the showroom and like obviously the office, man. But
all the gray ones have been on the couch.
Yeah,
There was a week when we first got the loft that like I didn't have there was no mattress. There wasn't, because we were setting up all the office spaces and stuff downstairs. So there was all this like office furniture. We were like, I was like, I don't care about, like, we'll get that shit later. Like we need to get the office space, showroom space set up. So that was, bro, I was sleeping in a cardboard box. I swear, like this cardboard box that like a piece of like a couch or something came in. I was sleeping in this cardboard box for like 3-4 days before I was like, all right, I gotta figure this out. Like this is nuts. But
so what do those next bunch of years look like? Tell me about, when did you guys go into retail?
We came to LA. So 2011, I would say it was summer 2011 we got that loft, so we kind of moved the operation out here, but I was still so back and forth for the rest six months of that. And then beginning of 2012, I was taking this like winter crash course. I was trying to like get, like a little like quick classes you could take, like a winter course, a little 10-day course.
I know about those.
So I'm like doing this like hard math course, and I'm like 3 days into it, and I'm like, I was losing it. I was just like, and it was at a point where like, so we had just signed up to do our first trade show, and which yeah, no, it was still Magic.
Still Magic, okay.
So, those trade shows were always on Valentine's Day. It's February 14th. I just remember it was always on Valentine's Day. So we had signed up for the show. We had basically spent almost like a good amount of the money we had on getting the trade show space.
Yep.
So it was that was like a big risk for us at the time. We had just hired our first sales director, who is still with us. Shout out to Colt.
Wow.
Who, he used to work at LRG, so like he had so much knowledge like coming.
You got the same printer and the sales director. Respect.
So he came on.
I know what happens next without even knowing what happens next.
So
tell me what happens.
So we had just brought him on. So it was kind of like shaping up. Like he had came on. We were still in the loft. We had just put this deposit down to get the space at Magic. So I'm like, in my head, I'm like, now it's like January. Like it's January 1st, 2nd. I'm like, all right, we gotta figure it out. We're kind of growing out of this. The loft was like just overflowing with stuff. So we're also looking for like a real warehouse now, because shit was getting crazy. So right around that beginning of that year, this is really the year everything took off, was 2012. So and it happened really, really quickly. It was between that like beginning of the year till we did the trade show in February. So right around January 1st, 2nd, we signed this lease for a warehouse over in Monterey Park. It was I want to say a 2,400 square foot warehouse office space. This was like a big deal for us.
You're going crazy right now with that.
Going crazy. So we get this spot, start like, got this little like office space, little warehouse, and I'm just so amped. Like we got like it's real. Like this shit's real now. Like we're not in a loft. So we turned the loft into like we were actually living out of the loft. Now we moved all that stuff to the thing.
So what kind of stores were you in at this point? Because I know this was also the era of like Karmaloop and all those.
He's about
sites.
to hit right now, the trade show. What happened at the trade show?
So it was really the trade show was like when we started obviously getting all those account stuff. Before that, we were like, it would be like small relationships with some shops in the Bay Area. Filthy Dripped in Berkeley was carrying us.
Wait,
like that
Dripped?
was Filthy Dripped.
Oh, I don't know. I thought I was talking about
Hilltop. They were in Hilltop Mall at the time, actually. So that was like our first account ever, but we had been shipping them for like a year, but it was like small orders.
So what was that? What was that order? That real order that you got?
Like a wholesale order?
Yeah. What was that order you got that changed the game? Or was it you guys just got a bunch of orders?
Well, it was really like so listen. So we get the office space. We start hiring. Like I hire like our first sales directors. This kid I'd known from the Bay Area who was living out here, just graduated USC. I hire him as our production director, and then I hire Colt. He's our sales director. And then I hire a warehouse manager, found him on Craigslist, and he's still with us. Shout out to Carlos. Like, he's still with us rocking. Great guy.
We're gonna have to tell you. We're gonna have to talk about how you've retained all these people over the years, because that's honestly a really hard thing.
This is all early 2012, so we're end of 2019 now. So it's crazy, but. So I have a warehouse manager, a sales director, and a production manager, and then it's me doing designing, and I have a kind of like a production manager helping me now, and then Nima's handling all the finances and things like that, and dealing with like the vendors and things like that. Elle's doing marketing, and then we just hired our sales director, so he's helping us like. We had just put down this deposit for the trade show. I still don't really know much about trade shows. We had been going to Agenda for years, so I knew like what my booth should look like, but I didn't really know like what
the interaction was.
Yeah, so he's helping like set all that up and letting me know like this is what the sales catalog needs to look like. This is what this needs to look like. So we're like trying to build a real collection now. Like he's trying to help me build a real collection. Like you're missing this, you need to add this, you need to add more SKUs of this. So I'm learning all this stuff. I'm putting it all together. And mind you, I'm taking this crash course, back to the crash course that I'm taking in the Bay. And I'm like, and shit's just going so crazy. And it's like, I'm like losing it. And I'm like, one day it was like the third day into the class. And I remember me and Nima have this conversation on the phone, and he's like, and I'm like, man, I'm like losing it. Like, I don't know what to do because it's like I'm so stressed out. We just put all this money down for the trade show. Like, if we don't hit these deadlines, we don't get this shit done. I feel like I just couldn't. At that point, I was like, reached that breaking point where I was like, I know I can't get everything done and do both of these things.
Tell me you dropped out.
So it was literally like it was that night me and Nima were talking on the phone, and he's like, man, you gotta make a decision. Like, what do you want to do? Like, you know what I mean? Like, are we doing this thing or not? So I was like, that was like the moment I decided to drop out.
Greatest moment of your life.
I wake up the next morning. I was just like stressed the whole night. Like, wake up in the morning and I'm like supposed to be going to school for this shit. And I tell my mom like, yeah, so I'm dropping out. And and she's like, okay. Like, she's kind of rattled on it. And then she's like, okay, so like when? And I'm like right now. Like, it's.
Was she surprised, or like did you
was
show signs it was coming, or
I didn't know the day before I was doing it. You know what I mean? Because I was still like, it was just like when I came back from school that day before, I was just like breaking point. Like, I was just so rattled on this show. I'm like, this shows like we got like 35 days till the show. I got to get all these collections need to get made. I got to make all these sales catalogs,
samples,
all these samples ready. We got to build the booth, all this stuff. And I'm like, how am I going to do all this? I'm trying to do this shit. I'm in the Bay. Everything's in LA. Like, I just reached that breaking point. So I told my mom I'm dropping out, and then put everything in my car. I was driving this Volkswagen Jetta at the time, a silver Volkswagen Jetta. Put everything in there, and I just drove to LA. And that was when I really moved to LA. Like, it was literally the next day, put all my stuff in the car, drove, got to LA, like, didn't even unpack my bags, just opened my computer, just started working. I like popped an Adderall, and I was just sitting there working for 3 days straight, bro. I didn't even because there was so much work to be done. I was just like, I gotta just get to it. So I literally just landed. My bags were just standing by the door, like, didn't even unpack them for like 2 days. Like, just was just sitting there working, trying to get ready for the show.
Because I was making all the line sheets, right? Too at this
all
time.
That. So like it was, and the reason why I was so stressed was I was like, we had put like this deposit we had, or the payment we had put down for Magic was so much that I was like, if we fuck up at this show, like, it could be a wrap. You know what I mean? Like, no
risk, no reward.
Like,
baby.
there's no way we can't back out on this, and there's no way we can recover and bounce back from taking an L on this money that we just put down for this. So it was like, we had to do it.
So what happened? How'd it go?
So we just I was just grinding for like the next 30 days, getting all these samples together, line sheets, sales catalogs, getting the booth together, getting our team together. We're still like, we just moved into this new warehouse, so we're still like trying to hire some people for the warehouse. There's still like drops happening. Like, there's just so much shit going on. So, but this was like one of the most exciting times of my life.
Yeah.
Like, when this was all going on, like,
I love the chaos, man.
It was like, I love it. Like, it was so fire. So we go to the show, and that's when the year before I had designed our like Ikonick logo. So that was when like the logo kind of got created, and the Pink Dolphin logo, the Waves logo.
Is this the what do you call it?
It's
sideways
like the three waves with the two dolphins jumping out of it. So I had designed that logo maybe 6-7 months before the show, and once we came out with that logo, that's when shit really started hitting the year before, and why stuff started speeding up, because we had this logo that really now tied back to the brand name and made sense. Before that, the promo logo was our main logo, and it was cool for like all the underground fans and all we built such a grassroots following with it. But what really took it to the masses was like getting that core logo that made sense with the brand name, and just the colors, the way everything like lined up. We go to the show, and this is like right around the time LeBron was dropping the South Beaches. So I think it was like a big, like, people were trying to always match shit back to the shoes, and there was nothing that matched back to those South Beaches. And we had just like, the logo happened to like kind of like come, like those colors happened to kind of come out around the same time. So we went and did the show, and we pulled like a bunch of favors, had a bunch of like our like artist homies, athlete homies. It was crazy. Nipsey Hussle came out, like that was rest in peace. Like he did a lot for us like that year. Like he came to the show. We did like an after party with him.
And for people watching, getting celebrities and athletes to come to the booth to schmooze with the people buying from you, and then taking them out at night to dinner, to clubs, bringing out these artists and entertainers is huge. And that was all off the strength
And
of
he
just
did it
authentic
off
relationships.
love. Like he was like we got him a flight and a hotel, and he came to Vegas and did it. Like it was,
Wow.
like, I'll never forget that. You know.
So
Like,
all these
we're a real
relationships
good
started
dude.
competent. So you got a bunch of orders, and you guys are.
So we go to the show, and it was just, bro, the show, like, it was just, like, that's where it just exploded. Like, it was, like, people were like, what the fuck is Pink Dolphin? You know? And it was just pandemonium, like, chaos at the booth. And we had a small little 10 by 20 booth. Like, it was nothing crazy. And it was crazy. Like, we had, like, crazy amount of orders coming in, and we knew what we were doing now because we kind of had, like, a little sales team. Like,
Yeah.
it was really just Colt, but, like, he was
Well,
kinda
thank
doing
God
the
for
whole
that
thing.
math course, man.
Man.
Yeah, that's crazy because that's kind
That
of
just
your
sparked
breaking
it all. I
point.
was
Yeah.
like, man, and it just, we just had to go there and went there, crushed the show, and that's kind of when everything just blew up, was like right around that time.
The one thing I look at when I look at this situation, it's the kind of the common theme that I find in all successful entrepreneurs is just when you look at that situation, I think the one big variable that was huge for you guys was Colt. You know, you found a way to hire him. He had the relationships with LRG. You guys didn't even know about the operation, and he's bringing by buyers that used to buy from LRG. So
he was at LRG, and then he went and started his own sales agency. So he was doing Diamond Supply. He was doing, you know what I mean, like brands like Hot Air, like, you know what I mean, like some of these.
And how'd you find
He was
him?
doing like Orisu, like stuff like that. You know what I mean? So Nima actually found him through, I want to say he found him on LinkedIn.
Wow.
Or something like that, like LinkedIn or Google, and then like found him on, like, we've always been like real like nerds on the internet.
Yeah.
So it's like, you know, the internet's like our biggest tool. Like everything that we've built is all because of the internet, right? If you really look at it, it's all like the internet is our biggest tool, right? So we've so he found him through there. I want to say he was like contacting him on Facebook, like found his Facebook page, was like hitting him on Facebook, and that's kind of how that came about, you know.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting that you've retained all these employees and just all these partners and relationships. Give these people some advice, because nowadays everyone's not gets bored, but it's always like on to the next thing. How have you been able to keep all these people with you? I mean, to have the same people from the start of the brand to fast forward to now is like, honestly, that's my most mind-blowing thing. I'm coming out of this just because me and him run a business, and when we see people come and go, and obviously and our company's only 3 years old. So like, talk to us about that. Like, how have you been able to do that?
You know, I think it's, you know, with our brand, it's always been, we've always been painting this lifestyle for people, right? So there's always this, we're just not like any other brand. We're not just necessarily just trying to sell like this product or whatever. We're actually selling, there's like a whole lifestyle behind it, right? Like the brand stands for like prosperity and positivity, and there's like a lot of underlying messages with what we do, and the people that, it's always, the fans have always followed like us individually as well as the brand, because it all makes sense. Like this message, it's not like this fake message we're pushing. It's actually
like,
a real message,
it's
right?
like tying people to the identity early so that they can't really, it's like who they are.
Yeah, and just like learning, like, you know, all these things we're talking about, like hustling, like, you know what I mean, like being like on top of your shit, doing what you like, all these things that I feel like, you know, you look on the internet and you see all these successful people, but there's not a whole lot of like how they got there, or like the work they're putting in on an everyday basis. But you see all of like the glamorous shit, but you don't really always see people like, you know, you don't see them in the trenches doing all that stuff, right? So like we've always tried to like show that lifestyle. Like it's more of like a raw, uncut life. Like it's not like, oh, like we're just, like you don't get to see all this stuff. Like you just see all the, like what's on the surface, right? So I think also with a lot of the people that work for us, like a family, right? So they see that, they also see what we have going on and really believe in the vision, you know? And a lot of our guys have been with us for a long time, you know? So it's really cool, man. It's like a family. Like I don't even like to refer to them as like
employees,
as my employee or something, because
we don't do titles,
because they're really like, I'm friends with all these guys in real life too, you know? Like we'll go out and kick it, you know? It's not just like you coming to work, right? So
Let's talk about personal brand, because I think, again, when I think of Pink Dolphin, I think of those colors, and then I think of you and Nima. And I think that obviously you guys have fairly big personal followings, and you guys have, when you look at your page, it's very clear that you guys are deeply entrenched in the brand. So how have you guys utilized your personal brand to help push Pink Dolphin? Is it just an extra distribution channel, or is it like, talk to us about that a little bit?
You know, I think people, like, I was kind of like touched on it earlier, but I think people want to see like who's behind like this brand, or who's doing things and how did they get here, right? So a lot of people, there's a lot of like fans that have been following us and following the brand since the Myspace days that know the story. They have kind of grown up with us like since we were younger, and now they're like our age, but it's like they might not necessarily maybe wear streetwear anymore or be like, you know, but they still follow like us and our journeys and what we're doing, because it's more than just clothing, right? It's like we've been like,
It's about the story and about you guys.
it's a real story, you know, and just like the shit we're doing, it's just like I want to like inspire people with what we're doing. And I get messages all the time on, you know, on Instagram. People are like, yo, you inspired me to do this, or you inspired me to like go take this class or do this or start this business. And now it's like, it's been like X amount of years. Like people will hit me and be like, I started this shit like 4 or 5 years ago because of Pink Dolphin and because of what you guys were doing, you know? And that's,
I fucking love those messages more than anything.
yeah,
Man.
those are the best.
Those are the fucking best,
you know,
messages.
it's like seeing people on the street wearing your stuff. Like it's so much cooler than like seeing celebrities wearing it, because it's like that's cool and all, but like seeing real people that went out there and bought the shit and like are sporting your shit like for real because they really fuck with it. That's like the dopest shit. I'm driving down the street, I see somebody walking down the street wearing it, or I go to Disneyland and I see kids rocking it there. I'm like, it's dope, like, you know.
And like as entrepreneurs, that's something to me is like the fuel that keeps entrepreneurs going, is like those little things, like those little DMs. And because like obviously entrepreneurship is super fucking hard. It's lonely. You have to sacrifice a bunch, and those little things like just propel you forward and just keep you going.
So I want to talk about strategy in relation to some of these relationships, because for me, again, I mean, E40, G-Eazy, I mean, Klay Thompson. I mean, these are guys that, I mean, seems like you're very tight with. So for me, you know, outside of the MySpace type stuff, how do you go about like someone like Klay Thompson? Like, how'd you go about meeting him, and how'd you go about building what looks to be a very authentic relationship?
That like with Klay, for example, I want to say Nima hit him up on Instagram like back in the day. Just
guys, don't be scared.
You gotta just shoot that DM. You know what I mean? You never know. You know, I shot him like he hit him on the DM and was like, I got some dope shit for you. And he was like in LA. It was like, I want to come by the store, and he came by the store, and we went and like linked and just chopped it up, and like
that's it.
Came to the crib. We were playing FIFA. Like, you know what I mean? Just like. It just be like these weird like things that'll happen. Like it's just like these opportunities that happen. It's like there's no real method to it. You know what I mean? You gotta just network. You gotta just do it. You know, it's like there's not really like a course for this. You know, like you don't really go to school. I mean,
you guys are just being super authentic too.
Yeah, you just gotta, but it's gotta be real. It's got to be authentic too, you know. When people think like you're just trying to get them, you're trying to use them for something or whatever, like it's never been about that with us, because it's like I don't really care if you wear it or not, or if you like the shit. Like if you like it, you're gonna wear it, you know. But like if we're vibing and we become homies over it, like, you know, there's people that like that there's artists, celebrities that have never worn our brand, but like we're good friends and we talk all the time and we kick it, but they might not be a fan of the brand, or they might not, like, they respect it, they just might not, and it might not be their thing, you know. So it's never been about like just trying to push a product on somebody or trying to like use them, you know. You just don't want these people to feel like they're being used for something, you know. It needs to be more authentic than that. So
I feel like you guys aren't a brand that's doing pay for play. We don't do that either. Just whatever happens, and you go, you know, good relationships that way. So outside the relationships, collaborations have been huge for you guys, and I've seen through the years. I mean, it's crazy. I've seen you at these trade shows for years. I mean, how long ago was like that Fila collab? I remember that sneaker. Was that 2 years ago, 3 years ago?
Like that was 2014, 15, something.
So I've seen you guys. I mean, from Fila to doing the Aqua Hydrate, the water with like Mark Wahlberg and P Diddy. Let's talk about a little bit about collaboration and how important that's been for you guys.
Yeah, I mean, I think collaboration. It's like, you have your core stuff that you're doing, right? You're releasing a spring line, a summer line, a fall line, a holiday line. Like, that's cool. Like, you got all that stuff. But then the collaboration is kind of like what makes it exciting, right? So you like throw those in between season drops and stuff like that, and people stay, just like it makes people want to tune in and be like, okay, what else is going on, right? Because it's like, the seasonal stuff is cool because you have to do that as a clothing brand, right? That's all your core stuff that you're doing and things that you want to do, but you have to do collaborations to, keep it exciting and just like be doing new stuff all the time, so
new stories, new consumers.
New stories. And like for us, collaborations, I've always tried to think a little more outside of the box, like Aqua Hydrate, for example. It's like, how can we do something like clothing to clothing collaborations are cool, but we've always tried to do like something. Not every collaboration needs to be a clothing to clothing collaboration, like I want to do like I have so many ideas of like just cool stuff that we haven't done that I want to do that are just like maybe consumer products or like other things that are exciting than just like out of pocket ideas that like you wouldn't think like that we would do. But
that's really funny because that kind of segues into your hat. You're wearing a Dolphins motor hat, and ironically enough, Rebecca, before she came, we were talking to her, and the identity that she knew you guys as was the guys that had the car in your colors. So she didn't even know about anything else. The first thing that came to mind was the car that you guys did, that you guys obviously wrapped in those colors. So what is Dolphin Motors? Is that just something that you guys are just, utilizing to tell stories through? Is that your car? Like, what's going on with that? Because that's one thing that I remember me seeing, and I was like, yo, shit's crazy.
Yeah. I mean, Dolphin Motors was kind of like a sub brand that was also is pushing, like, it's all part of this lifestyle story, right? So it's like, at the time, like I would say, like when we bought that Ferrari, like the first Ferrari we bought was like 2013. There was a lot of like, that's when like streetwear was like, everybody was making a bunch of money. So everybody was out, all these owners were out buying cars and like just flexing and stunting on everybody. So like I looked at it more like, like the Bajan store on Rodeo, like how they got the car outside, and it's more of like a company car, and how they're doing that. It's like that was always like, I liked how they did that, and it like painted like a lifestyle for me, right? With what was going on with it versus like all these like brand owners that were just out buying all this shit and flexing on it. But it's like, what is that really doing for the kids? What is that? What's the message? So when we did that, it was like we started this whole like Dolphin Motors sub brand because it was like, okay, so we have this car and it's kind of like a company car, but I wanted it to be like, this is everybody's car. You know what I mean? It's not just like my car. It was like from people that worked for us to like the kids that were buying the clothes. Like, it's just like, this is like, you can do this too. You know what I mean? Like, you could get here too. You could do this. And then we started this sub brand where it was like, you could own a piece, like you could, you know what I mean? You might not have the Ferrari, but you could get like a piece of the lifestyle and like live that lifestyle. You know what I mean? And be a part of it. So it's just like all just part of the story. And then it kind of took off. Like, it was never really supposed to. At first, it was just like funny, like merch shit almost on the side, like and it was just like people loved it and people were just fucking with it. So then we just started doing like a little bit more stuff with it, and we had like a whole little separate website with it. You had to have like a little password to like enter it. It was just like little like cool shit. Like, if you're like a real fan and you like follow us and you can't just like go on our website and find it. Like, it was a whole another website, whole another thing. So we've just kind of kept that going throughout the years. That's and just
awesome. The common theme that I keep hearing, which is fucking crazy, is story. And for me, I always think that, with anything in life, it's just all one big story. And like, when people ask about my background, I have trenches in my life that I, have this overarching story where it was doing well and then going to failure, and then, things have progressed. And for me, from a story perspective, one of the biggest thing for you guys was the store on Fairfax. And for people, again, that are watching, that don't live in LA, Fairfax is the hub for the most iconic streetwear brands in the world, the Supremes of the world, the skate brands of the world, great restaurants and such. So when did you guys get that store on Fairfax, and what has that meant to the brand over the years?
So when we first moved to LA, and we were, we had kind of like I wouldn't say peaked out, but we had like done our thing in the Bay. So we left our mark out there, but now it was like time to like get out of that like hometown bubble, come and try to like take this thing more national, right? So we came to LA and came to LA and we were getting like me and Nima were both getting our haircuts at Legends on Fairfax, right?
I know exactly. It's across from Popular Demand.
From Pink Dolphin.
Yeah, from Popular Demand too. Actually, it was on that side of the. Yeah.
So we would get our haircut there like every week, and
tell me you still get your haircut there.
I don't. My barber, JR, who was there forever. He's like a Bay Area barber.
He cuts Curry's hair, right?
Yeah. So he ended up moving back to the Bay. So he opened up a shop up there and stuff. Yep. So he left, but like I was there for many years until he moved out. But so we were getting our haircut there all the time, and one day we just like pulled up. Like I'd always wanted a store on Fairfax because all these brands that I would look up to all had stores on Fairfax. So when we came, so one day we were getting our haircut. Like we were both in the car. We both pulled up, got like a little parking spot right in front of the shop. Turn around to the side and there's like a for lease sign on the store. So. And at the time, like Fairfax was like, it was hard to get a space on there because all the stores were always taken, right? Like somebody always had something. Everything was like in high demand, trying to get a shop in between Rosewood and Oakwood because you want to be on the actual block. So saw the sign, like instantly called them, and I guess they had just put the sign up like 20, 30 minutes ago. So we were like one of the first people to call, and they were getting like bunch of phone calls that day for the space. So like we were one of the first people to call. So then they were like, obviously we didn't have like big like business financials and stuff like that at the time. And they wanted like certain things. We're hella young, like never like really rented like a space like that. You know, you didn't really have like the credit history and all these things. So you
get the cosign or you pay multiple months? What'd you do?
So we had like I had a friend who was like an athlete, NFL athlete, who helped us. You know, you got
relationship lord right here.
Relationships, man. Yeah. Trust me, like they don't teach this in school. You gotta like. So we had like one of our NFL athlete homies, like he helped co-sign for the space, and like they want to see bank statements and all this stuff. So he's got like millions in the bank. So we're like using his name on the thing, and like that's kind of how we got the space, like, or how we got approved for the space.
And how long was that?
This was early 2012. Like,
wow, early?
I would say.
Bro, you guys are not supposed to be around now.
It was right after. So February was the trade show. It was like March, April when we called and got the space. So it was like right after the trade show. So I'd say like a month or so after, because I remember I went to South by Southwest like the week after. So that's usually like end of March. Yep. So it was like mid-March when we called. Mid-March 2012 we called.
That's crazy.
My favorite thing about this is it looks like it's a quick come up because it's quit school in January and all of a sudden February you get the orders and in March you have the fucking store, but it's years and years of dog shit behind the fucking. This shit's crazy.
It was crazy, bro. So like I just had to make it happen after getting on unemployment checks. I was like, I got 8 months to a year to make this happen before these checks stop coming. And
so let's talk about the store, because for me the store, one of you guys got to follow this guy on Instagram, because you're going to see the one thing with the Pink Dolphin brand is I feel like you guys identified so many artists. I mean, guys like Future, like you identified all these artists. Like they're at the Novu, they're not at Staples Center. Like you guys got these guys early, and then you leverage them in store to obviously drive revenue and then drive relationships. I mean, these are guys that getting fucking Nipsey Hussle for flight and hotel, like that's fucking crazy. So tell me about the store and about how you guys, I think the store was a huge part of building the identity and what you guys did in the store.
Yeah, I mean the store. So when we came to LA, we had just got out here, so we were trying to make our market. LA is like a hard place to break through. It's people are so opinionated. People like certain things, they don't like certain things. It's a tough market to break. So we came to LA. We were like, I was like, when we saw that, I was like, we need this store on Fairfax. Like, we got to make this happen, right? So we locked in. We got that. We were really spending like a lot of our like early like money that was coming in, revenue that was coming in from all these wholesale orders and stuff like that to like do the store build out. Like I want to say we spent like a couple $100,000 on that store build out at the time. Would probably be a lot more now because shit's mad expensive, but like and that was like a crazy process for me because I've always liked designing. So just being able to sit with like an architect, design like my first store, like that was so cool. Like that shit was awesome. So just doing that.
Drop some names. Drop some names of these hitters that you found.
We brought for our grand opening we brought Chief Keef to LA.
Wow.
And this was before
Chief Keef was nobody.
But he had so the song was out at the time. And he was like, it was like the biggest song, you know what I mean? The I keep this shit 300. That shit's like, it was like the biggest song out at the time, and it was like, but it was like underground, but it was like so popping, like everybody was fucking with it. So, but he had never been to LA though. So we flew him out for the grand opening of the store, and then we did this massive like after party at Playhouse on Hollywood Boulevard.
Playhouse.
Back when Playhouse was going
Igor,
crazy.
Playhouse?
That's my guy.
Hey.
Him and Eli.
There you go. This is a long time ago. So
Playhouse still lit too, by the way. But
I haven't gone there in a long time. I can't even comment on that.
On my birthday, remember that?
But
me, you and Eunice. They brought out a cake.
That's a long time. That's a long time ago.
Yeah.
That's
but anyway, so we did this. So we did this party there, and like everybody, like all these celebrities, like I remember Rihanna was there, Chris Brown was there. All these people came out to see Chief Keef because he was like the most poppin' thing at the time, and he was in LA, and it was like he was doing this thing. And so like that was like a big moment for us, you know, like for the grand opening, we brought him out.
Drop some other names. So you got Chief Keef, you got Future, Chris Brown. Future.
The Chris Brown collab was big, the Black Pyramid thing. That was super dope. Chris was like an early supporter too, like so when like 2011, 2012, like he was, you know, after I would say Wiz was like big, and then like when Chris wore it, it was a big deal because he was just like, he's always just had like the drip, you know, like whatever he's wearing, like people are always following what he's doing. So like he was really fucking with us early on too. So then like the collab kind of happened naturally, and he was trying to start his brand now, and so like we were like, all right, yeah, let's do it. Like we could leverage like him, and then he's trying to launch this brand. So like we like came together. We're at his house. He like drew the graphics. I like vectored them, put it out. Like,
love it.
Shit was crazy. So like that was dope. Future one was crazy. The Free Bands collab, like, and it's crazy because Future's like one of the biggest artists out right now. And at the time, I feel like it's crazy because we did that in store, and there wasn't that many people at that. Like it was so weird, you know.
Nuts to see.
But it was, I mean, like there was people there, but it wasn't like what you would expect for Future, you know. Yeah. But that was a cool collab, like early on. I mean, YG was like, you know, he's done stuff at all the stores on the block, but he's supported like all these brands in LA on Fairfax. So he did a couple things there, like him and Mustard. We did a bunch of collabs with him. Who else?
Let's talk about
Dream. All those cool ones.
Let's talk about dream collabs. If you had to do one collab with anybody in the world, who's that dream collab?
You know, I still want to do the BBC ice cream collab. That would still be fire to me, just on some like nostalgic shit. You know,
nice. I can see that.
Like that's like definitely a dream collab for sure.
That'd be an easy tie-in.
Between that and like, you know, like a Nike collab, obviously.
With you on that.
Fire.
So looking at the kind of the landscape now, what brands out there do you like what they're doing, and why? It could be it could be consumer products. It could be clothing.
Right this second. In clothing.
Let's go clothing. Yeah.
I think like on the, you know, I really like what Amiri and Root are doing right now. Like I think they're kind of pushing the envelope with like, you know, in the space. There's not that much cool energy going on right now within the space. So like I like what they're doing. And I like what Jerry's doing with Fear of God, what he's been doing for the last couple of years. You know, I mean, what Virgil's doing with Louis obviously is amazing. I love what he did over there, and just how he changed the whole high-end landscape. You know, now it's like you got, you know, he came in and he just changed the whole shit, got like flipped upside down for the better. And like, so I love like what he's doing over there with that. And like, you know, Kim Jones at Dior now, like all that stuff is like fire to me. But yeah, as far as like, I just, there's not like a whole lot of exciting shit going on, but the couple, there is like some super exciting stuff going on with a couple people that I do like. So
interesting conversation we had before we got on at the espresso machine was
the espresso
machine is, I said to you, I was like, yo, you guys escaped the matrix. For those of the people that, you know, don't have an insight into, you know, kind of the streetwear landscape, you know, the streetwear and the high fashion, especially skate. they were fucking, I don't want to call out any brand names and hurt any feelings, but I mean, there was people that was fucking crushing it at one point, and a lot of them were on Fairfax, and as fast as they went up, they went down probably even faster. And you guys, through it all, have stuck through it. Still got the store. You guys are still, I tell it to Jeff, I'm like, Papa's Roman is like, these motherfuckers somehow always stay relevant. What do you attest that to? Like, give me one thing that tells me this is why we stayed and the other guys didn't. What do you think?
I think some of these brands, you know, they saw this like ceiling of where they were at with like revenue coming in. So like the moment the landscape kind of changed and like you're not making as much money, you're still making good money, but you're not making what you were. Like, I think some people got uninterested with like going as hard with what they were doing. You know what I mean? And I think like times change, right? So you gotta like, are you gonna like just like not go as hard because you know it's got a little rough?
Yeah.
You know, are you gonna stick it out? Are you gonna still do it and go just as hard as you were going when you were making X amount of money, but now you're making a little bit less? Like, you know, and I think sometimes that clouds people's judgment. Like you get somewhere, you get a little comfortable, you're making this money, and then the moment that shit drops down, you're just like, I gotta figure out the next shit. You know what I mean? You stop putting as much effort into your brand and going as hard as you once were when you were making this certain amount of money, you know? So
people fucking underestimate. I mean, you have soldiers. Like, you guys have a real family, and people, like, I always say with Jeff, it's just like, imagine starting at fucking zero. That sounds like a terrible situation. I mean, you guys have all this goodwill, all this family, all this brand, and people, I get it. They dip off a little bit, and then they think they need to go on to the next thing. Meanwhile, it's like, hey, you have hundreds of thousands of happy customers. Like, you can just tap back into that, which blows my mind and makes sense. So let's wrap things up a bit. Let's talk about Pink Dolphin right now. Where do you see it? What's on the horizon? Where do you see it in a year? Where do you see it in 5 years?
So like this year's been like super cool because we just did this NBA collab that just came out like a month ago, and that's something that like I've been wanting to do for a long time. One of like our coolest collabs I think that we've done, just because I mean we did the MLB one like a year or two ago, which was cool. I don't really watch baseball like that, but basketball is something I do watch a lot. So like that was like super cool for us doing that, and it was something different and did really, really well for us. So
let's talk about that real quick, touch on that, because I'm really trying to provide value to all the people out there, a lot of entrepreneurs. How do you go about getting it? How'd you get it?
So it was we did this partnership with EA Sports. We did this,
I saw that, in-game
apparel, like unlockable apparel that you could get. So it was for NBA Live. So we did that. It was us, Bape, and Undefeated that like did it. That was like 2 years ago, and then like we had like crazy amount of downloads on it. So they were just like hyped on it, and they were like, "Yo, you guys should for the next one, you guys should do like your own apparel, but also do like NBA stuff." So then they kind of connected us with the NBA, and then we went to New York, met with them, and then they were like, "Yeah, let's do it." So all this stuff that we just made is going to be dropping in the game soon too. For next year, so
that's awesome.
That should be cool. We were trying to line it up, but like their release dates got pushed back with the video game, so but we're still putting it in the game, so it's gonna be dope.
5 years from now, where do you see Pink Dolphin?
Man, it's a tough question, you know, but I think, man, I mean, 12 years ago, I wouldn't have thought that we would have made it this far, you know, so. I mean, so like not that we wouldn't have made it this far, but I don't think you think that far sometimes when you're just like going. You're not really looking at like what are we doing in 5 years and 10 years. You're just like, what are we doing today? What are we doing next month? Like, where are we trying to be at by the end of the year? So, I mean, I want to just, you know, as far as Pink Dolphin goes, I think we've kind of like got to that point where it's like a solidified like
legacy brand, I think, like
name, you know what I'm saying? So it's like we could there's so many different things we can do with the brand. So, you know, there's some things in the works for next year, some big things that are like outside of the apparel industry, but it's going to be for Pink Dolphin. I don't want to like spoil it, put it out there yet, but we got some cool shit coming next year that I think is going to really help push the envelope and keep it going for the next 5 years.
Love it. Let's talk about the piece. So you picked an unreleased piece. It'll be out probably when we drop it, but why'd you pick it? What does it mean to you?
I just think that, you know, this literally like my story. You know, it's like, you know, success story requires persistence, discipline, failure, risk, patience, sacrifice, hustle. Like, these are all like, I think people see these things all the time on Instagram, little like quotes and little things, like they see it, but it's like, this is like real. You know what I'm saying? Like, we've been through this, like we've actually done this. It's a real thing. And it takes like especially like the failures, the patience, the sacrifice, like that. These are like big things that like I've personally like had to go through to get to where I'm at. And I think like these are all like, you don't have these pieces, like you're not like, a lot of people want to do this entrepreneurial lifestyle. They see it on Instagram, they see it on the internet, and they want to do it. But like, this is real. Like, you really gotta do all this.
So those are the requirements, man. You can't skip one thing on there. I promise you that.
So let's end with this. Biggest failure in your life. Tell us that I think people, they see the glitz and the glamour, they see the cars. I mean, you're working and living in this. I mean, you've been in some deep moments, I can tell. We've been in some pretty shit moments. Is there a moment that you remember in your life where you're like, what the fuck am I doing? How the fuck am I going to get out of it?
I wouldn't really say this is like this. I haven't really like expanded on this story too much, but there's been a lot of years have gone by from when it happened. But when we first moved to Fairfax, like a lot of the like we obviously had like a big fan base already. Like, we had a grassroots fan base that we had been building for the last 4 years before we opened the store in 2012. When we came to LA, like, we had just moved to LA, and we came to LA, and all of a sudden we opened a store on Fairfax, right?
Everyone's like, who the fuck are these guys?
Everybody, all these like brands that I looked up to, and I don't want to like name names, but there was like almost all of them, like almost all the brands on Fairfax were just like all these brand owners who were like a lot older than me that I had like looked up to for all these years were just like hating on us for opening up the store on Fairfax. And it was like this like internal like this like beef that was going on that was like behind the scenes. Like, there were certain brands that were like calling vendors and stores that we were in and like trying to blackball us, like literally telling them like, if you produce the like, because we were using like, you know, you use a lot of the same vendors and stuff in this game. So like, they would be calling like our vendors, like obviously their POs are a lot bigger than ours. They're spending a lot more money than we are. We're still a small brand. So they were like just trying to crush us. Like, they were calling vendors, like trying to get them to not, like, if you guys keep working with them, like, we're not going to place any more orders with you. They would be calling like store accounts, like, if you guys buy stuff with these guys, we're not going to sell to you. And obviously like, they're like hotter brands in these stores at the time. Like, we're trying to get into these stores. We had just done the trade show, like, like, you know, so like that was like I wouldn't like say that's like necessarily a failure moment. It was just like it hurt. It was just like a big hurdle where I was just like, damn, why is everybody hating on us? Like, I didn't really get it.
Idols turn rivals, man. It happens to everyone.
And it was just like, it sucked because I was like, man, like, I grew up like buying a lot of these dudes' clothes on Karmaloop. Like, I like a lot of this, like, their stories were inspiration stories to me. Like, I wanted to come open a store up here to, you know, like, you know, because they have stores up here and I look up to this shit, and like that like hurt, you know what I mean? It was like, damn, like all these guys are against me, what the fuck? But then like the consumers, like the kids, the fans, like they were fucking with us so tough. Like, that's how we got through it, because it was like genuine, like what we were doing, you know what I mean? We were doing like shit that like, we weren't just like trying to do this just for profit, or like we were doing all these, like, it was like real shit we were doing, you know? So like, people saw, like, you know, people can see through bullshit and like see what's real. So like, all these kids were rocking with us, and like
the story ends in your favor. Authenticity wins. And quite frankly, I can assure you guys that are watching that some of those people that are talking shit are not on the block, and you guys are still there. So congrats to you, my man.
Yeah.
Amazing episode. I appreciate it, dude. I'm very, very excited, especially, you know, our fan base as well, but your fan base. I feel like you went in the nitty gritty here, and I think everybody on your side is going to really, really appreciate going into the fucking pizza days and the water park days. So super excited. Thanks for coming.
Thanks, man.